Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Do you want this mic? Oh, we love that mic. Thank you so much. Hello, hello. Testing, testing. Good afternoon, everyone. It is so lovely to see you here at the Cohen Quad. For those of you who aren't familiar, my name is Ali Holton. I'm the Events Director here at the Oxford Writers' House. Now, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome you to what promises to be a fascinating discussion with the wonderful Ti Mikkel. The Oxford Writers' House aims to create a community for any and all writers, and today's discussion will provide the opportunity for us all to hear more about and learn from Ti's vast experience as a multimedia writer. Ti began her career as Game of Thrones creator George R.R. Martin's personal writing assistant, before going on to join the writing teams of the hugely successful television series House of the Dragon and the newly released A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, on which she was also a producer. Ti has now published her debut novel, The Archivist. There we go. The first instalment in a thrilling trilogy that fuses high-stakes action, forbidden romance, and mind-bending science. The Archivist follows protagonist Cora's realization that her rare blood type may be the key to time travel, and has been dubbed by George R.R. Martin the best debut novel I've read in years. Speaking with Ti today is Professor Carolyne Larrington, Emeritus Research Fellow in English Literature at the University of Oxford. Carolyne is an expert not only in medieval English and Old Norse literature, but in all things Game of Thrones. She has studied both the television and book series extensively, and her books, Winter is Coming and All Men Must Die, serve as the perfect companions to the series. Carolyne unravels a plethora of fairy tales in her newest work, The Little Book of Fairies, which is forthcoming in March 2026. We are so happy to welcome Carolyne and Ti back to Oxford, as both are old friends of the Oxford Writers' House. A year and a half ago, Carolyne sat on stage with George R.R. Martin for a talk in the Sheldonian Theatre, and Ti Mikkel accompanied George in the Western Library on a rare tour of J.R.R. Tolkien's original sketches of Helm's Deep, all on a student's Old English essay. It is our pleasure to now host this conversation as Carolyne interviews Ti in her own right as a screenwriter, producer, and author. In terms of the structure of this event, we're going to open with a discussion between Ti and Carolyne, exploring Ti's experience and her process as a writer. This is then going to be followed by a Q&A portion, where you guys will get your chance to ask any questions that you have for Ti. And then finally, we will conclude with a signing portion. So if you've brought your copies of The Archivist, you can bring them up and Ti can sign them, or if you have any extra questions, we can hopefully squeeze those in. But please bear in mind that we do have to conclude this event at 3:30, so just have the timings in mind moving forward. We're so grateful to Ti for coming to speak to us here today, and we cannot wait to learn from her writerly wisdom and to hear more about her process as a writer. So, that is enough from me. I will pass on to Ti and Carolyne.
You've written like 13 books, so I should be interviewing you. You know this.
Wildly impressive. I've had a long time to be writing them in, so we just got the last couple of people trickling at the back there. So, Ti, let's start at the very beginning, which I guess they say is a very good place to start. How did you come to work with George? How did your writer's journey begin?
In a spectacular way. I was a late bloomer in knowing what in the heck I wanted to do in life. I truly had no idea. Throughout university, my early 20s, I dabbled in this, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll try this, But I had read A Game of Thrones, and something inside me was set afire. And I think that was probably my first introduction into what it is to have taste, personal taste. What makes you sing? What drives you? I read it and I was like, oh, this is it. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was something, and I kept reading, and I thought, well, I have to be a part of this. And this again, wasn't anything tangible. It was a set of books that at that point hadn't even been adapted into a television show. So I did what any normal, sane person would do, and I wrote George fan mail, which he didn't answer.
Yeah, that's part of the course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, I didn't give up. I tend to be a dog with a bone. I think as a creative, as a writer, finishing a project, succeeding in any capacity, just outlasting, is probably going to get you through. And so I figured out a way to get an internship with George's manager at the time out in LA. It was back in the days of entertainmentcareers.net. I don't know if anyone knows that. Yeah, I was just like refresh, and then I was like, oh wait, I recognize this, and I didn't just apply for that internship, which was unpaid. I begged for it. Don't pay me, let me work here. I know everything, it's gonna be fun, you're gonna love me. And they're like, okay, calm down, you're crazy, but welcome aboard. And then Thrones started going at that point, and I became helpful to have on staff aside from rolling calls. I sort of knew what people were talking about, and that was helpful in conversations and that sort of thing. And I'm not sure when I first spoke to George, I can't remember, because our correspondence was email-based for a long time. He thought I was a man for a long time, and he had an assistant Ti, and Vince had an assistant T. It was very, very funny, and then I met him at a book signing, officially in person at Vroman's, and we got on like a house on fire. Our taste was remarkably similar. We liked the same things, read the same things, and yeah, a partnership was forged over many, many years. It took a while to be onboarded, and I went, this is a really long-winded answer, I know you want to get to the next question, but I want to just make it clear, like, it was not a straight line. I wasn't paid for many years in the internship. I worked multiple jobs, but I knew I wanted to be a part of something involving A Song of Ice and Fire, and damn it, I was going to make it happen. And finally I'm here, but it took a long time. Yeah.
Well, that's an amazing journey, I must say. What were your hardest lessons when it came to actually taking part in the writing?
In the writing of just my own personal projects or writing for television?
Well, kind of both, I guess. I mean, which came first? Was it writing your own personal projects, or did you start writing by writing with George for the TV?
I started mostly for him, just going through manuscripts and like doing passes for lore, to make sure that everything tracked in that way. I dabbled in a story that would eventually become that thing for many, many years, but it never took shape in the early years. It was just draft after draft. That was first person and YA. The first time I wrote it, a lot of things changed. That's been upended and torn apart and set afire and put back together quite a few times. There was no. I'm trying to answer the question, the challenge, right? You're asking about the challenge of getting started in writing. Starting is the easy part. And I mentioned this earlier today. It's finishing something that's the hard part. It's very tricky. It's a skill in and of itself. And as television writers, it's tricky because you're almost trained to keep the audience engaged. You're always hooking. You're bringing them back, to finally bring something to a full close is a special skill. And yeah, I don't know, that's not a great answer. Talk myself in a circle.
But that's a really interesting kind of insight into the writer's craft, is what you were saying this morning for those people who weren't there, the difference between starting, hey, I've got a great idea, powering in, and then bringing it to an end. And I guess with TV shows, you're bringing it to an end, but you're also hoping it's going to be recommissioned. So how do you manage that kind of, it's kind of closure, but yes, there's more.
Yeah. Well, I luckily have not been a captain on any of these ships, so it's not really been my problem. But you know, it's a balancing act. You have to lead with your creative gut, and you throw stuff at the wall, and eventually you get there. And you're working with a group of professionals too. In a writer's room, it's different than when you're writing a book. You know, if you're writing a book, you're alone in your own thoughts, and there's such freedom in that, and it's wonderful. But boy, when you run out of ideas, you're screwed. You know, you're out there all alone. In a writer's room, it's a collaborative process. Everybody is helping the other person out. When you can't think of something, somebody else is thinking of something. A rising tide lifts all ships. So you're not alone, and that's the fun part about it. And when a writer's room is clicking, it's like a really good first date.
Oh, that's something to think about. So I wanted to ask you, you'll recognise this question because we were talking a bit about it at lunch, that Night of the Seven Kingdoms has got a very different tone from Game of Thrones. It's what all the reviews have been saying, particularly because the main protagonist is the poor orphan hedge knight. He's not, as you usually get in epic fantasy, a prince or even somebody of royal blood who's been brought up like Jon Snow, so I would say, or something like that. And House of the Dragon has brought some small folk in as well as Dragon Seeds, who are major actors. So I wanted to ask how you think these perspectives from underneath, as it were, how do they affect the way the show's developed, do you think?
I mean, it's an interesting perspective, and I think a personal connection, I think, is created when you tell a story surrounding the underdog. Maybe speaking from personal experience, someone who knows what it's like to struggle. I think all of us probably have struggled, and if you're not born into privilege, for example, or extreme wealth, life is really, really hard. And to have a story watching someone who you can identify with, who can break the hierarchy of the system and potentially do great or scary, things like I'm leaning in, I'm watching, I'm rooting for that character because you see yourself in them.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way of particularly talking about the way that Night of Seven Kingdoms is playing out, because you have got that kind of consistent point of view of we're all rooting for Duncan.
Yeah, I mean, and here's a guy, he has imposter syndrome. Does anybody have imposter syndrome in here? Anyone have anxiety? IBS? Anyone? Yeah. Just me though. Yeah, it's comforting to watch that on screen, and God, you root for him.
You certainly do, and I think the perspective that Egg brings, because he's got the power, he's a prince, but he's also little, and nobody knows who he is, and he's clever at knowing what he can achieve and what he can't achieve, but at the same time, no spoilers here, but the sense that he has a future in this world which is going to be quite different from the way things are looking now is something that's really interesting.
It is very interesting, and I won't say anything.
No, dark hints, I think, is what we're talking about there. So George, when we met 18 months ago, when you and he were here, and we had the thing, the Sheldonian, George told me you were the keeper of the show's memories. Which is a great job title, keeper of the show's memories.
Cool.
Yes, you can put it on your business card. Yeah,
the keeper of memories.
And how does that work?
It works by being super organized. I'm not one of those people who came out of the womb good at everything. I knew those people in my classrooms, and they always pissed me off. It's like, oh yeah, of course, you're just naturally good at things. No, I've really had to work at things, really study constantly, I've read those books over and over and over again to make sure I get things right. I take notes, I keep it organized. Being organized is a superpower. Most people aren't, because it's work. It's intense admin and it's invisible labor because nobody sees it. But when you have your system laid out before you, it starts clicking and your job becomes a lot easier. However, you can't rest. I still reread, I still, listen to the books on tape to keep everything sharp in my brain. And double checking myself and not being afraid to say, I don't remember, no clue, let me look, and yeah.
Yeah, and that's
organization,
important, isn't it? To know when not to bullshit and to go, yep.
So many people do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can mix up your Blackfire rebellions and then...
Oh, can you imagine?
That would just be dreadful.
Oh, no.
Okay, so now we're going to segue between Knight of the Seven Kingdoms and the Archivist. Both have kind of unlikely heroes. You've got Sir Duncan the Tall, who's a 6 foot, 6 at least, hedge knight, who's as thick as wood, my prompt says here, which is a little unkind. He's not the sharpest knight in the draw, let's say, and in that classic brains and brawn pairing, he's clearly the brawn. But thick as wood, he's got instincts. And then we have Cora Moreau, who's a diner waitress whose spine has a sharper curve than the question mark, it says here. So how do these two quite ordinary people come to embody that capacity for heroism?
I just wrote what I know. There's a lot of Cora in me, a lot of me in Cora. I had scoliosis growing up. I had the spinal fusion that she has that sets this whole thing off. I struggled with who I was, my identity, body image. Oh my gosh, wearing clothing that was 3 times too big just to hide myself, to hide away. I remember one of the early first notes from my editor was, what does Cora want at the beginning of this? She's working at this, diner, and it's a dead-end job, really. What are her aspirations? And I always push back, and it's like, have you never been stuck? Have you never been almost incapacitated by indecision and not knowing what to do, and the easier path was just keeping your head down and staying put because it was safe and no one could bother you and you had solitude? You could disappear into your books and not do anything challenging, anything scary. That's her. That was me for a long time. And in the book, I put something in her path that forces her to act, to take a risk, to jump, without looking down first, to see if the parachute works,
And do you think Dunk has that moment as well? Or do you think he has to make a kind of choice as to where he could just walk away from the Tournament International, which is absolutely fraught with risk for him before the story gets going?
Yeah, the pilot episode. Yeah, cue explosive diarrhea. He's going through the whole mental, okay, here, I could do this, I could go to Lannisport, I could do this, I could do that, I could go to attorney, prove myself, get some service in some lord's castle, because attorney is kind of like a medieval job fair, if you want to think about it in a weird way. This is a great place for me to show how good I am. Someone will hire me, I'll get a lot more gold, and I can have a lot more ale. And then obviously,
but like lose everything.
You could lose. Oh yeah, you actually have to do the thing now. It's like when you get a new job or you get a new project, you're like, oh yes, I'm going to write this thing, or you get a book deal, or someone buys your pilot. You're like, yes, and then a day later you're like, oh no, I have to do so much work. Can I do this? Can I write? Am I any good? Oh God. And again, it comes all the way back to explosive diarrhea.
Okay, I hope everyone's writing that one down. Yeah.
I'm really glad I have the mic for that.
I'll be clear.
Yeah. So the TV shows then are fantasy, epic fantasy based, but in a sense, what we have in the Archivist is science fiction of a kind, isn't it? And did you think about consciously making a shift from going back into the past, into a medieval world, as opposed to working in the current world where time travel is a premise, but so far we haven't followed anybody on that journey into the past?
I never think about the process of telling, when I write, that's a little bit too outside in. For me, like when my brain can't access, all right, do I want to make a pivot from fantasy to sci-fi, things like that. I start with a character and I get to know them. And speaking of the time travel aspect, I've always had a fascination, you know, walking down a street, especially here in England, so much rich history, you know, right outside your door, looking at a wall and wondering, I wonder who built that. You know, I wonder, you know, whose hands were laying these stones, and were they happy? Were they afraid? You know, how was their home life? Where were they going? Did they miss someone? Were they suffering from some sort of heartbreak? So I've always been interested in the lives that come before, and even with my own family and relatives, you know, long gone. You know, what were they like? You know. What kind of people were they? Were they funny? Did they look anything like me, or do I look anything like them? And then my fascination with genetic memory, here's a memory for you, came to me when I was studying at the University of Colorado in Boulder. This is before my spinal surgery, and I had been told by my doctor at the time, when you get your spinal surgery, you can no longer run because of the way the spine is fused. There's too much impact on the vertebra, whatever. So I was training for a marathon, and I was doing cross training. So I would go in and I would do you remember when kickboxing was really big? Like Tai-Bo? So I would do that. And then I would leave there and I would do a run through the quad. And this particular night, the sun it was still early, but it was winter. So the sun was setting a lot earlier. Everything was really dark. And I saw a shadow of a person probably 50 feet ahead of me cross a bridge and kind of go down on the other side of it. And every hair on my body stood up. I remember it clear as day. And oh my gosh, I remember this moment. My stomach lurched, and I turned and I went the other way. Wow. And I went around. But it got me thinking. I was like, how in Sam Hill did I know to do that? What instinct in me caused a shadow to cross my path, made me think, oh, you need to turn around, danger, danger, danger. You know, and then I started reading about traumatic memories, you know, Holocaust survivors and descendants of Holocaust survivors who carry this genetic trauma. And I just started thinking, man, this got my weird brain thinking about these things, but it never came from an outside, oh, I want to tell a sci-fi story. I just became interested in ideas and people and accessed it that way.
So the next question that I have on my list here is, how did you come up with the book's main premise? So is that it then? Is it traceable back to that moment where you started thinking about genetic memory? What hidden things are we carrying within us that are going to get surfaced by the odd thing that happens, like that run?
These are such good questions, and I want to say yes, it all started there. My brain was that organized, and I was decisive, and that's where I set out, and I made my mark, and I wrote. No, but it happened in a lot of, you know, I wrote in starts and fits for a while. The idea of Cora and Nick, it is a romance novel, by the way, FYI, it's a slow burn. They came to me very, very early on. In the mid-late 2000s, I had some sort of concept of these two people. I didn't know who they were, I didn't know their names, I didn't know what they want, but I knew there was something there. You know, there was, again, it was that fire in the belly, gut feeling that I got when I first read Thrones. I didn't set out to write a story. There was just something in my brain that was kicking around that I had to get out because it was driving me crazy. It told itself.
Oh, that's interesting. That's something that a lot of authors say, isn't it? That the character comes to them, or you're in a hole in the ground, lived a hobbit, and once you've written that, then you've got to follow it through and see where you're going to end up. So perhaps we won't talk about the novel as a sci-fi novel then, because it seems to me like you're quite resistant to this sort of genre labeling. But
Actually, you know, in publishing, that was always like a conversation. Like, what genre is it? I was like, I don't know, man.
Well, people always want to know where you put it on the shelf in the bookshop.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's sci-fi romance.
Yeah, what tags you're going to put on for online searching.
That's their job.
But this is part of it. It's set in the real world. We're not on planet or anything like that. But it's a world where there are going to have to be some quite strong rules about how things work. Who can time travel?
Yes.
What's going to happen when you do that? What are the many, many pitfalls, as we can imagine? And I sense that there's more rule, because we haven't time travelled with Cora yet, there's more exposition of rules to come, without info dumping, of course. But have
Which
you
is
worked
the tricky
these all
balance,
out?
yes.
Yeah, have you worked out the rules of this world already?
Yes, it has been hell. You know, I was warned very early on when I said, I'm going to write a time travel novel. My friend Mike Cassidy was like, don't do it, man. Don't do it. It's terrible. I was like, no, it's not. I got this. He was right. It's hard. It's really, really hard, and it's tricky to get right. At a certain point, you just got to stick to your guns and just forge ahead, you know? But yeah, I have all the rules mapped out, and I've talked ad nauseum about them with my husband, who really keeps me honest.
So he's the one who's raising questions.
Oh my gosh.
So
but would
if
that
this
work?
happens,
Yes.
Yeah.
No, he makes me better. He stress tests the science. It helps that he's good at science.
It's always good to have a resident
And I
scientist around the place. Yeah. And why blood as the kind of organising principle for uniqueness? And rhesus null phenotype is the rarest blood type. In fact, I thought you'd made it up. But
I know.
Like
Isn't that
a real
something?
thing,
Yeah,
apparently.
that exists.
What if 6 million people have it? Do you have it?
No. I'm AB negative, so I'm still pretty rare.
Okay.
But that's where it
That's why you
started.
rolled. Yeah.
Because I was, okay, you know, what was it? 7th grade? 8th grade? In the States where you test your own blood type. Did anyone have to do this like in the lab? Yeah, in biology. And I remember trying to test mine, and everybody else was, you know, a positive or a no, and I was the only negative in the room, and I was like, my slide's not working, I'm not doing this right. Mr. Schwartz, something's wrong. No, calm down. So there was just a fascination there, like, I'm very rare. Mom and Dad, did you know? I may be negative, you know, at the start. And then, you know, I did the George thing. I took something cool, and I dialed it up to 11, and I made it cooler.
Yeah, recognise that. Okay, so we talked a bit about Cora's self-image already, but I guess my next question is that all writers are said to put a little bit of themselves into their characters, or you said there's a lot of you in Cora and a lot of Cora in you. How did your experiences, and having got that sliver of ice in your heart, have you been bringing friends and family into the writing in The Archivist?
You mean making them characters?
Yeah, or drawing on their experiences, or kind of, their histories or whatever.
Oh yeah, I mean, writers are sponges, you know? Everybody you meet, things make it in onto the page. Yeah, I am very much Cora at the beginning of this. Alas, I am not capable of time travel, nor do I have RH null blood, but I have been that indecisive woman who hasn't known which way to go what was the right step, what I should do with my life, which I know can be frustrating as a reader sometimes to start out with someone there, and it's meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's a frustrating, uncomfortable space, and you know, and her growth will come through towards the end of the novel. You see a little bit, book 2. You see a side of her that she didn't even know she had, and I toyed a lot with having to show up and be your own hero, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, you have to give your characters tough love sometimes, and yourself.
Okay, well, Cora has a really great band of friends, and I think the British readers particularly will warm to Kevin, because he's a witty gay guy from Oxford. Hurrah! So, yeah, he's doing us all proud here. And he's not like any of the Lord of the Rings characters. So does Kevin have a model? How did you come up with him? And his British idiom, which is pretty impressive.
I am surrounded by an army of gay friends, and they are the best people, and I need that, and I wanted Cora to have what I have. Kevin is based on a lot of those people into one, but mostly, Kevin is my husband.
Okay.
My husband is not gay, but he is still Kevin. And a lot of his great lines, he says those things. I'm just like, keep talking, sweetheart. He's doing great. We love him. He's wonderful. But yes.
The sewing skills
Kevin's
as well, I hope.
He's turning red.
Okay, we'll move rapidly. Otherwise, we could have the dog set on us, which is not something that we want at all. So let's go back in time a bit. What were the first books that you liked reading? Do you have a sense of childhood reading?
I mean, the
favorites that really kind of shape the way you think about writing yourself?
That's a good question. I started with the Berenstain Bears when I was really little. Did you have those here, Berenstain Bears books? Anyone? No? No. What about Jean Craighead George? Julie of the Wolves? No one? My Side of the Mountain? On the Far Side of the Mountain? Everyone read Hatchet, though. Okay, so that's one. I was obsessed with Hatchet back in the day. Oh my gosh, that's Gary Paulson, right? Oh, yeah, no, that was my first. It was either that or The Giver or The Hobbit. They were all sort of around the same time, but it was oh shit. Books can be fun. This is, what in the world? Everything disappears. A good book is better than anything. When you lose yourself, that magic is absolutely potent. And I lost myself in those books early on. I think that's probably the starting point.
Okay, so just a quick follow-up there. The Archivist has got quite a lot of themes from Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and Game of Thrones, kind of fellowship and friendship in particular. Would you say that there's some bleed through from those kind of classic fantasy franchises?
Oh, sure. I'm so like George. He's like, don't make me talk about theme. Oh, God. I never, ever think about a message I want to deliver. I never think about theme. That's too broad for me. I always am right here with the characters, and then, you said, bringing it up, like, themes of the Fellowship. I'm like, yes. Yes, that's exactly what I did. That's amazing. Yeah, we'll use that.
Insight.
Yeah. No, it's all character forward. How things progress. I guess that this can now go into a question about, do I outline? Do I not? Did I set out and know exactly what I was writing? In a way, yes. But book 1 definitely evolved quite a bit. It took me many years to get it where it is now. Book 2, it wrote itself.
So book 2 is written?
Yeah, book 2's done. And then book 3, I'm like 100 pages in, and I fully outlined it. So I know everything that's happening to the point. So I do it in a way like like even if you were writing a script, I do scene headings. So I'll have like chapter 1, and then I will have slugs under it that say the location. I play with POV. I split in book 2, and then you'll see some other things, some ripples of that as you go on. Who it is, what the weather is like. You know, I really go into detail in my outline, so when I start writing that chapter, I don't have to think, oh God, what's the date? Is it hot out? Is it, okay, well, where are they going? It's all there, so I can just immediately describe and put, hopefully, the reader exactly where they need to be, which is in that space. Describe the room, the walls. I will go, I'll go through and really get it detailed, and then I will say conversation about this, the pertinent lines I want to hit. And then, like in screenwriting, even with chapters, I will write the out too, and I'll just put out, O-U-T in big capital letters, colon, and it's, question mark, question mark, question mark. Cora leaves the room wondering what the hell's supposed to happen next. It's always, so what's the hook? And I was talking a lot about hooks earlier on today. What's the hook getting into and out of each scene, and how to keep that steadily going and building and not jarring. When you outline and you have it all there, for me, the process is tedious, but it's not hell. Hell is sitting down in front of a blank page of paper and going, God, what? You don't remember anything. All of your skill, nothing. You're like, I can't do this. I give up. I can't. But I've found that with outlining and knowing where the story goes, I can look at it like, all right, this page is still blank, but I know how to get into it now, and I certainly know how to get out of it now. And I also find it helps that when I'm writing, because at the end of the day, yes, we're creatives, but it is a job, it is work. A lot of days, you just gotta chop wood and carry water. You have to get those words on the page, and then go into that next chapter, at least for me, get that next one started, so the next day when I start on chapter 17, I have that intro, and I go, okay, and then I can go into it. Oh, it's hell. Another thing, if you want to talk about process, am I talking too long?
No. This is we were about to move into process.
Oh,
so here we are.
yeah, no.
You anticipated.
No, with process, writing as much as you can every day, and don't stop where you feel like you should stop. Oh, I finished a chapter. Don't do it. Don't stop there. Embrace the suck, keep going. Oh, it's really, really hard, but you can do it. And really, if you really do it, it can take 5 minutes. Just write the really bad version. Future you will thank yourself. And then another tip from me, and everybody's process is different, you have to find your own, and then just guard it, like a dragon. But it is when I wake up, when I'm in the writing mode of the first draft, of the craft draft, of hell. I get up early. I do not look at my phone. I do not look at the news. I get my coffee ready. I sit down and I write. It seems so simple, and it is simple, but it is never easy. I can't tell you, just getting up and not looking at your phone, getting up, not eating anything. No, get your coffee, sit your butt in a chair, write for an hour. That hour, I actually promise you, if you do it, the hour's gonna fly. The hour does fly, and that's always some of my best writing right there. So I typically get up, I do that, I let the words fly, and then if I've written for an hour, I think, okay, then, I'll have some breakfast, then I'll come back and I'll tweet, okay, now my reward, I can read the news now. I can get on Reddit, I can do this and I can do that, and then I'll do a Peloton, because it's really important to move your body. As writers, we have to protect our bodies because we're so stationary. But the best writing I personally found that I do on a day is when I close the laptop and I go for a really long walk and I listen to music, and I just it's crazy. the ideas just come. I'm voice noting myself, I'm texting myself, I'm writing things down, and I get so excited that when I come home from the walk, I just want to write a little bit more. Those are good days. So everybody write. Some people think they're best in the shower. Anybody? Who's a shower thinker? Anyone? Yeah. Anybody a walking thinker? Yeah. Oh, I love walking. Tolkien walked, didn't he?
Yeah.
See, we're like Tolkien. All together.
Well, there's some really useful kind of lifestyle tips in there as well, and I think absolutely it chimes with my experience that you have something you've got to write and you're thinking, oh no, I'll do it tomorrow. Just one paragraph into the new thing. Then tomorrow you can look at it and go, I'm throwing that away. But you've already got to paragraph 2 where maybe the real work is starting.
No, you're absolutely right, and everybody's process is different. I'm a morning, my best brain is in the morning. Some people, it's at night. Whatever your process is, you really have to protect it. And I mean that insofar as when I'm writing a first draft of something, a script, a book, whatever it is, I don't accept lunch invitations from friends. I don't do anything. My process is my butt is in that chair, I work, I go on my walk, I watch TV at night to wind down, and I have my salad, and I wake up and I do it again until I get to a place where I feel confident that, okay, I can break out of it. And that may seem neurotic, maybe it is to a certain degree. I just know that if I don't do it, the work just doesn't get done, and the work has to get done, because to make a copper at this living, you have to keep writing, even in the face of rejection. And I'll tell you a story about that. So I've written the first book of the Archivist, and I was querying for agents. Rejection, over and over and over again, saving them all. Mountains, truly. And I called George, and I was like, I'm so upset. Why me? This is terrible. I feel really bad. This hurts. This feels very, very bad. What should I do? And he said, write book 2. And I was like, you're crazy. That's the worst advice in the world. Nobody wants book 1. And I was like, grumble, hang up. All right, I'm going to write book 2, because I got mad. If you can force your anger into productivity, I'm going to write book 2. And you know what? Writing book 2 made book 1 better. Because and now, I went back and was like, okay, I can change this stuff, and went back again, and now I got a book agent. So just keep going and let the rejection fuel you. Like, really, I've had a lot of it. I still have it, and you just can't let it get you down. You must forge ahead. If you have a story in your belly that's burning, that you can't get rid of, that you just know has to be told, but you can't explain why 2 + 2 = 4, because it just freaking does, write it, and don't stop, and don't listen to anybody else.
Okay, well, I think we've more or less got to the end of the questions that I had. And in fact, I haven't asked you a lot of questions because you answered them with brilliant intuitiveness before I even put them. But I think maybe now is time to move on to letting other people ask some questions.
Thank you so much to both of you. It was absolutely amazing. And thank you so much to you who really did sort of predict so many of the questions there. They flow together so well. Thank you so much. So yeah, so if anyone has any questions, just pop your hands up and I'll come around with the mic. Oh, Griffin, you wanna?
Yeah. I just wanted to say it's my genuine pleasure to welcome you back here, and I'm in awe of the fire you bring to this room. And I was curious to hear, as someone who's dealt with, personal struggle, I find a lot of myself in you, having grown up in a single household, being quoted by my mom constantly, you're the man of the house, I didn't go to college, I want you to go to somewhere. I'm curious, how do you think personal struggle fuels your ambition, your resiliency, because it's something that I really admire in you.
Oh man, that just fires me up. It should fire you up too.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I weirdly, like it does, the rejection and you know, because life is so hard and God, it is just relentless. You keep waiting for it to get easier. Why won't this just freaking happen? You know, and it's hard, but if you just keep going, resilience is a superpower.
Yeah.
And so is hope, and so is positivity, and so is kindness, you know? And you know, we have to remember that, you know, it's not just about us either. It's the example that you give to people around, because you are an example to people you probably don't even know about. You have to keep going for them and for you, and trust me, if you do, it's gonna work out, because most people quit, and that's the truth.
Thank you, really appreciate it.
So I have two. One's really small. Where did you get your shoes?
Oh, they're Jimmy Choo.
Okay.
Aren't they great? I can't walk very far, but
Um,
I'm trying to feature them in the video.
my second one is, obviously you talked about querying literary reps for books, but you kind of went a different way in terms of film, being an assistant first. How are you repped for TV, and how did you go about when you had the opportunity to looking for a lit agent for TV, and what were your...
That actually happened, it was serendipitous. I had an entertainment lawyer, and I had written this book, and I was starting the querying process. This was before I was, you know, landed with like a million rejection letters, but I asked him, I said, hey, I have a manuscript. Do you know any film or television agents that maybe want to represent me? And my now agent at UTA was a friend of his. He read the manuscript and said, you know, I read your beautiful manuscript, and I'd love to represent you. And I said, oh, thank God. Like, yes, thank you. Yeah. No, it was great, and he was amazing too, because he took a chance on me. I hadn't done anything. Like, yes, I had worked for George as like a writer's assistant, but I had no television credits. This was before we were developing other, you know, Game of Thrones properties outside of the original Game of Thrones show. It was still actually on the air at this point. So, yeah, he took a chance. I sure did get lucky and am blessed to have found him. Yeah, like he's been great. Yeah. But yes, use people, you know, ask. If you know people, do you know anyone? Do you know anyone? Yes.
Okay.
Don't be afraid.
Has your experience in the film and TV industry affected your writing process? And do you have plans to have your own work adapted? Or would you like to, please?
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, eventually, if that's in the cards, heck yeah. For the work to be adapted. I will say, writing a script is so much easier than writing a novel. But I challenge everyone, if you are writing a script, to write a book, because I don't care about commercial success. Forget about it. It's made me so much better. You know, but from the other way as well, screenwriting has made me a more commercial in the way I format a book, for example, because talking about chapters with you earlier, you know, get your hook, get your in and your out, and not everything needs to be, you know, an explosion at the end of every chapter. I'm not saying that, but like knowing how you go from each scene to the next. And in scene work, you do that. In a script, you do that. Okay, get in, get out. Get in, get out. That was one of the first pieces of advice I had when I started writing in television. Get in the scene, get out of it. Don't linger when you don't have to. Yeah, keep it snappy.
Hi, so I was, in terms of like House of Dragon, Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, there's been some moments where information has been revealed to the audience in like sort of prophecies or dream sequences or whatever that, you know, having read the books and all the like mental material, I was thinking, oh, I thought they would hold that and save that for a big twist reveal. And what's the sort of storytelling narrative thought process behind kind of almost spoiling the audience for these big moments or revealing things preemptively?
I mean, that's case by case kind of thing. It always is. Mostly, I think we talked about this earlier, there's a fine line between keeping the audience leaning in, going, ooh, and an audience member going, I don't get it. What's going on? Why? What? You know, and turning up like, I don't get it. You know, so it's, again, case by case, but it's a tricky balance, and making sure people stay intrigued, but also satisfied and like they are informed and on the ride as well.
I'll be with you soon.
It's the whole. Thank you for the talk. So you all work on multiple projects, as I understand, roughly at the same time, your book and also House of the Dragon and Magic of the Seven Kingdoms. Do you find it easier to work on two things at the same time, or would you prefer to work on one project? So how do you think it impacts you? Is it ever like complete one from the other?
One at a time. But yeah, sometimes you don't have a choice. I'm luckily very type A in that I hate having things not finished. My anxiety increases the more I push things off. So I knock things out, I prioritize, okay, what's the hardest, get that done first, write this, get this draft done, because as every writer knows, writing is editing. So get the hardest draft done on everything that you're working on, right? And if you have multiple projects do at the same time, you know, prioritize and then go back and hack at it, but just keep going. I mean, one project at a time is ideal, but if you're smart and if you really just dive in and hate yourself for about a week, you're gonna be fine. I'm really fun to live with when I have these things. My husband's like, oh.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Ali's getting her steps in.
I am indeed.
So that's when the ideas come.
I'm going to have all my ideas after it.
Yeah, thank you for the talk, it was really interesting. I was just wondering, I feel like this has been touched on a little bit already, but I was just wondering about differences between writing for screen and the novel, and does it change like the way you write, particularly thinking about characters when you know an audience is going to maybe like see and hear a story, where like as opposed to read it with a novel, like and think about like on screen as well, like having actors who are going to be working on the character you've written as well, like does that change how you write?
I mean, sure, yeah, in a way, it definitely does. If you are on, let's say you're on season 15 of a TV series and you're writing for actors that we've all gotten to know and love, and you know how they deliver, you're going to write to that actor, you know, and know their strengths or, you know, or their weaknesses or where to box them in. So yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Again, it just sort of depends on what you know about if this series has been going, if it's already something that exists in the world, or if this is you know, a pilot. But if you are a lucky member of the Hollywood Society and have a pilot that you've sold and you have multiple attachments, directors, and A-list cast, you can write for The Rock. You know, like, yes, this would sound great. He can deliver this. Boy, wow, stunning, instant success. Yay.
Anybody else? Some more steps? Just talk amongst yourselves. I'll be with you in a second. I should have some like roller skates or something.
You spoke a bit about how you got your internship, but I mean, considering getting those are a bit more difficult at the moment, I mean, what would be your advice?
This is great, and I meant to talk about this. Okay, everybody, listen up. I, again, can only speak from personal experience, but if you want to break into filmmaking, screenwriting, directing, acting, whatever it is, all of us have a person, an actor, a screenwriter, a director that we admire, that, you know, my George R.R. Martin is, you know, it's not the same for every person in here. Make a list of the people who would just be oh, you're top 10, mind-blowing, dream person to work with. Find their company. Find the people associated with them. I had to go through George's manager, and I had to start as an intern and stay there for years unpaid while working other jobs. But be specific about where you enter and who you're learning from, and don't stop. Like just really, a lot of people, I think, go into, probably not just for Hollywood either, go into a job and just be like, I want to generalize statement, want to work in Hollywood. It's like, no, I want to work for J.J. Abrams. You know, I'm going to find out how I get, you know, I'm going to get whatever it is, and I'm going to start there. I'm going to be an intern. Okay, no interns. No, they're not hiring here. All right, well, he works a lot with this person. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to get back to this person. Be very specific. Knock on that door in the same spot over and over and over and over and over again. And if you're anything like me, you know, in 15 years, you know, it'll open. That sounds terrible. No, but it's great.
Anyone else have any questions? Oh, this one's nice and close.
Thank you. You said that writing with a good writer's room is like a good first date, and I was wondering if you'd ever had any bad first dates in that sense, and what was difficult, or the situations where you had to really negotiate and then in the end you came up with something better that maybe...
Oh yeah, that always happens. But I mean, I've been really lucky. I've had really great experiences through and through, and I love everybody I've ever worked with. And I don't know if everybody, you know, who's worked in Hollywood can ever say the same, so I recognize how blessed I am in that sense. But heck yeah, you're gonna write with ideas, and it's a writer's room, it's a collaborative space, and it has to feel very safe. Because you have to be vulnerable in there. You can't be afraid, oh God, this is a really stupid idea, should I not say it? Oh, if I say it, I know they're gonna laugh at me. But you can't, you have to feel free to be crazy, to be outrageous, to make a mistake, to get things wrong, you know? You know, it's, has anyone taken improv? So it's a lot like that. So like, what's the rule with improv, right? You start and it's yes and. Yes and. Always be constructive and positive as you build on ideas and give encouragement, or, you know, and it's interpersonal relationships. And I suppose that's literally any office setting or university setting or anything. It's just, you know, getting on with your coworkers and being respectful and really having each other's back at the end of the day. Yeah.
If no one else has a question, I have one, and it's very cheeky, it's sort of two-parted. Oh, I'll be with you in 2 seconds. I would love to know what your favourite part of writing is. You know, whether it's part of the process or part of the, you know, piecing things together in your mind. And then secondarily to that, I would love to know, you talked a bit about kind of trying to keep going, embrace the suck. What happens when an unexpected hurdle arises, maybe things are going really smoothly, and then in the middle of a writing session there's a hiccup. How do you respond to that?
Oh, that's such a good question. Wait, sorry, what was the first question?
The first one was just, what's your favourite part
of
writing?
My favorite part about writing is no, actually, I actually love it. It's my favorite thing. When I get to just sit in the, oh, it's my time. I mean, okay, not every day is fun. Yeah, no, it's definitely not that. But man, when you get in a story and you're like, oh, this is clicking, and when I was told I couldn't run anymore after my scoliosis surgery, I was devastated because I loved running. And that runner's high, what is it? After mile 1, you get the right song going, and then it doesn't matter. You're flying, right? It feels good. It no longer sucks. The closest I've gotten to that is in writing. When I'm in a good place, nothing can touch me. You know, my bank account could be hacked. I could be fired. Whatever. I'm like, you know what? It's fine because I'm telling this story, and it's really, I'm having the time of my life. And I don't know, that's really cool that we have that we can access these safe spaces for ourselves and just create, I think it's close to magic, on earth. At least for me it is. When it happens, you just like, oh God, it feels so good. It's so nice. I love this job. Yeah, it's good. And then, was there another question?
Yeah, the second part was if you have an unexpected hurdle, things
yes.
are going well and then all of a sudden.
Again, just me speaking from my personal experience, and everybody's process will be different, but I personally rely a lot on faith, my own faith. I'm a big believer in hope and not giving up and keeping my chin up and being kind, you know, and going out there and doing things. I listen to a lot of sermons on my walks. I get my head straight because it's tough, you know, and for me, I struggled with faith for a long time. I was raised in the church. My mom taught the church choir, and that was real fun. And then I went through my late teens and early 20s, and I didn't believe anything anymore. And I was in just a really dark place, I would say. And then one day I decided, you know, having faith is actually harder than not having it, for me. Having joy and keeping myself there is harder than being miserable. And so it must be right. There must be something right about going forward and reaching and believing that things can happen and that miracles can happen, because happiness is not a destination. You know, you have to continue to run toward it and don't stop.
Thank you so much.
Very inspirational talk. Really enjoyed it. I had a quick question about process. So you mentioned that you did a first draft, you know, you sent it out to publishers and it didn't get picked up as you hoped. What was that process like, creating that second book? And
The second draft or the second?
second draft.
The second draft. Oh,
And that process of being self-critical, how did you manage that? Because, you know, first draft is the best draft ever, and then you're met with other people's criticism. How did you go about creating something again?
oh man, I learned so much by writing that book. First of all, I realized you should never show anyone your first drafts. Oh God, it was just so terrible. You know, again, it all comes back to perseverance, but you have to be kind to yourself too, and you have to give yourself space from a draft. Once you finish one draft, or at least for me, you put it away. You know, some writers say put it in a drawer, right? Walk away, work on something else. I never work on something else. Usually, I just put it away and I live life for a couple weeks. That's sometimes harder than the writing. Not looking at it, not thinking about it. But you'll be surprised at coming back, or at least I am. I mean, there's fresh wind in your sails, and it's not a chore. It's almost fun. Editing can be really fun. And you know, it's never, a friend of mine told me, you know, it's never done, right? Your work is never done. Your book is never done. Your script is never done. There's just a time when they're gonna take it away from you, you know, and that's okay. But yeah, again, perseverance, be a dog with a bone, don't give up. You hear no, I mean, let that excite you. Let that give you energy. It gives me energy.
What projects are you working on now? You mentioned book 2, I assume Duncan Egg or Seven Kingdoms Season 2 is going on. Is there anything else that you're working on?
Yeah, I'm writing book 3 for this. I had that outline that I talked about. So working away at that, working on House of the Dragon, and just having, honestly, the time of my life. Like, pinch me. Yeah. It's awesome.
So you had said that a script is never done, and there just comes a time when it's, you know, kind of taken away. At what point do you find when, you know, after you've put a script away, given some time and then come back to edit, that it is done? or is it a matter of?
I've never felt that way.
Yeah, never. Yeah, I never.
In fact, like once it's like it's gone off, you know, oh, they're putting it, they're binding it now, and I can't. Oh, it's hard for me sometimes to even open up the book and reread. I'm like, oh, I could just move that right there would be a little bit better, you know. Just you're a writer. It's just gonna happen. You're gonna have to. You must exercise in letting go.
Fair enough.
It's an internal process.
Thank you.
Is that when your agent comes and takes it out of your hands?
Usually they just have a deadline. And you're just like, oh no, send. You know, it's your child going off to school.
Well, if there aren't, oh, there's one more.
It was a really great talk, and you were talking about, you know, finishing as a skill. It also seemed like you were hinting that pacing is sort of a skill with the chapters, and I think one of the most impressive things on Night of the Seven Kingdoms right now is sort of the pacing that's happening. And I was just wondering if you had any advice or tips on how to learn that skill, whether it's in TV or you're in the comments.
That's really a really great question. It is a skill. I personally, I never took classes on writing. You know, I didn't study any of this stuff. I just started putting words on a page and hoping something made sense after a while, you know. But pacing to me is very gut-centric. And you have to trust in your own gut. You have to, everybody has their own taste. Trust it. Believe in it. Don't listen to what somebody else, everyone has their own taste, and that's very, very unique to you. And I find pace, when you're writing a sentence, the cadence of a sentence, how you describe, you know, a valley, you know, how you're writing, you know, a scene in a script. It's almost innate, like rhythm or pitch, you know. Certain people are really good at it. Ira Parker is very good at it, showrunner of Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Boy, howdy. When you find somebody, or you're reading somebody's work in this room, who you're like, they're really good, they're your new best friend. You champion that person, they're your ride or die, you learn from each other, like all of us can help each other out because, I mean, none of us possess it all.
Okay, thank you guys so much. Let's have another massive round of applause for Ti. We will now be moving into the signing portion of the event, so if anyone wants anything signed by Ti, please do bring it up. If you want to ask a cheeky question, we will allow that too. And otherwise, thank you so much everyone for coming. Massive thanks to Griffin, our director. And have a very safe journey home if you aren't coming up to speak to Ti. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh no.
Do you mind?
Do we need a shot?